to analyze uh, uh, the direct tax provisions of the Union Budget 2022. And today we are having none other than CA Vyomesh Pathak ji, a very young, a dynamic, and a passionate professional. And I would say he is a role model to all the young chartered accountants. And sir, I welcome you to our study circle, Vyomesh bhai. And we have also had the privilege to hear from him in the past in our study circle. So we are fortunate today again to have him on our the virtual CPE platform. So so now I request my team member Utkarsh Sharma to kindly introduce our today's speaker. Over to you, Utkarsh.
Thank you, Deepak bhai. Vyomesh Pathak sir is an associate director at BSR and Company LLP. He has got around 12 years of work experience in corporate tax advisory and compliance matters, assisting various national and multinational companies in various areas of cross-border investment and business structuring, exchange control regulations, M&As. He's also provided litigation support to various clients, also been involved in various advisory and due diligence assignments for both MNCs and Indian companies. He's currently pursuing a PhD in international taxation. He has been the co-author of the Compendium of International Taxation published by the Chamber of Tax Consultants in the month of November 2022. He's also the co-author of the book on ICDS released by CTC. He has been a regular speaker across WIRC and SIRC at various forums on topics on ICDS, RERA, and other income tax matters, having taken more than 300 sessions till date. One interesting aspect is he's a professional numerology consultant and a tarot card reader. All fees from above activities is used towards social causes only. So members can contact him if at all required. And sir, over to you. With this, I welcome you. Vyomesh sir, you are on mute.
Yeah, so I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. And I once again thank Andheri Oshiwara Study Circle, specifically Deepak ji, the convener, and his team, for inviting me on this analysis of budget from direct tax perspective. I know we have interacted earlier also a couple of times on other topics. And it's always a pleasure to be at Andheri Oshiwara, though we are not meeting at Raheja, right?
Yes,
sir.
Raheja, remember the venue. Yeah. So this time we are meeting virtually because of the situation we have. Nonetheless, it is hardly 1.5 days that the budget is announced, and I believe Andheri Oshiwara is one of the first study circles to have this today, that is on 3rd. And I was of the view that please give me some time initially to prepare for the budget, but Deepak ji was that we want it quick, and it is always better to have the fastest finger first. So here we are, and one of the first study circles to analyze the budget. And I congratulate Deepak and his team for this. I believe this as an achievement to have this organized at such a short span of 1.5 days. Now, I'm sure most of you might have heard the budget or read it somewhere, at least on WhatsApp, if not the fine print. You know, we all have gone through the budget in bits and pieces. Yes, the attempt being made today is to discuss the key provisions of the income tax. We have around 84 amendments in the income tax. So we will try to cover as many and as relevant as possible as far as our members are concerned. And of course, we'll take the questions as and when it comes, either now or towards the end, depending on the participant's choice. So we basically, this is what I try to cover, or this is what I intend to cover today. Introduction and setting the context, the personal tax front, corporate tax or other direct tax aspect, the buzzword of the income tax amendment, that is the tax on virtual digital assets, the cryptocurrencies. Then we move towards the trust, and of course towards the end, the key takeaways. So this is how I plan to cover the session today. And of course, beginning with the backdrop or the context for this budget. Let us have a recap of what has happened since last budget and where are we. Past 2 years have been very difficult for global economies, not just Indian economy, wherein we have been struggling with the health issues first, and of course the lockdowns and all have impacted our economic activities as well. So we saw last year at this point in time, as in February, March, and April, of course, these 3 months where the Delta wave was at its peak, and we had seen many people getting impacted, many people losing their family members. That was the situation last year. But if we see today, the economy has bounced back big time, and we are again back to our growth story, and we are again back to where we left a couple of years back. So in this in itself is a very commendable achievement in terms of coming back from the pandemic. And again, if you see, the GST collections was almost 1,40,000 crores in the last month, which in itself says that India is back. India has bounced back big time in terms of the economic growth is concerned. We have, as I said, the direct and indirect tax revenues have gone up. We also have VSP collections coming, which have been a good plus sign for the direct tax collections. Plus, we have the capital gains tax, which is again another boost to the Indian tax exchequer, is what I would say. That we have been seeing that many people, even including individuals, investing in the share market because of whatever reasons. The real estate was in a slowdown, the fixed deposit rates going down. So people took this as an opportunity to invest in the stock market and the stock exchange, which of course has also contributed to the direct tax contribution with long-term capital gains tax being introduced. Effect of US Fed Reserve imminent rate hike on rupee prices on low interest rate regime in India. So yes, US also, the Fed rate has an impact, though it is unchanged as of now. We expect it to go up in the near future. So that also has had an impact on the Indian economy. Economic contraction of 7.3%. But as I said, with expectations of bound in economic activities, and we are already seeing a forecast rate of 9.2% in the real terms, and it remains intact in Q3 for financial year 21-22 as well. So we are seeing again the growth story coming back, and we are back on the higher trajectory in terms of the economic growth. Global surge in commodity prices aided by the high oil and gas prices has also resulted in inflation. Yes, we have an inflation, but despite inflation, our growth story remains intact. Economic survey prior to the budget, just one day prior to the budget, the economic survey is being announced by the government, and this is the snapshot of how the economy has done in the past year. It is effectively a report card of the Indian economy. So as I said, the real GDP expansion of 9.2%, implying economic activity is now above the pre-pandemic levels. So we have already reached the levels where we left, and so there was a dip, but now we are again back to where we left. India's balance of payments, that is BOP, in surplus of exports of both goods and services, have been exceptionally strong. So our balance of payments has also improved big time, and we have been a better exporter as compared to an importer earlier. A strong revival in revenues, revenue receipts up 67% year on year, April to November 2021. This implies that the fiscal space has been there to provide the additional support. With all the stimulus and packages being provided by the government. The banking system is well capitalized, and the overhang of non-performing assets seems to have structurally declined. So yes, there were fears of NPAs earlier, and I'm not saying the NPAs have completely gone away, but it has been handled well by both by the RBI and the government. As far as the NPA assets are concerned, India's capital markets, like many global markets, have done exceptionally well. We saw the Nifty crossing 18,000, and I won't be surprised we cross 19,000 soon. Economic survey flags global resurgence of inflation, warns of imported inflation. Yes, inflation is there, and due to the imports also the inflation is increasing because the increase in the cost and also the forex reserves getting depleted. Indian economy is well placed to take on the challenges for financial year 22-23 to grow around 8 to 8.5%. Despite pandemic, this is a very good number, I would say, supported by widespread vaccination coverage, gains from supply side, reforms, and easing of regulations. So this is an overview of the economic survey, where we are in terms of the economy and where are we heading towards in terms of the growth story. Key policy announcements before we move on to the direct tax aspects. Now, initially when we used to analyze the budget and when we used to take sessions on budget, we directly used to start with the direct tax measures and what are the amendments in the act, in the income tax act, in the wealth tax act earlier, etc. But now the story has changed and the entire storyline has changed towards the growth model and more about the policy announcements rather than the tax announcements or the fiscal announcements. So therefore, it is always important for us to understand the policy announcement and where the government is heading towards in terms of the infrastructure or the capex in terms of development of roads, highways, and other infrastructure, including railways, metros, etc. So accelerated corporate exits, that is the IBC law, has been changed and amended to give impetus to give exits to the corporates at an faster pace. Atmanirbhar Bharat for defense procurement. So India has always been an importer in terms of the defense equipments, be it from France, Russia, wherever. But now we have been seeing the defense procurements and the local procurements for the defense also. And India has in fact also started exporting defense equipments to various other countries, Philippines being one of them. As far as this budget is concerned, I understand that 65% of the total defense procurement is proposed to be local procurement, that is from within India, that is the capabilities are being built up to have these procurements being produced or manufactured within India. So if you see 65% of the total defense requirement being local, this in itself says that we are moving towards the Atmanirbhar defense procurement scheme also. SEZ Act being replaced, and within 6 months we will have a new act in place of the SEZ Act as announced by the finance minister for the exporters of the country, and hopefully that will give further boost to the exporters. The new scheme and the new benefits will be announced shortly. What I hear is within 6 months it should be announced. Boost to private investments, and we are seeing announcement for disinvestment of almost 45,000 crores this year, with LIC and other oil and gas companies also being in the list of disinvestments. So therefore, apart from this, the government is also promoting PPP model for various infrastructure projects, be it the PM Gati Shakti or the agricultural schemes or even the healthcare scheme. So the PPP model has been introduced by the government to include more private investments even in the public projects. Last but not the least, the digital rupee is to be issued by the RBI. So in a lighter way, we can say that we will have our own cryptocurrencies shortly. Again, this will be on the basis of the blockchain technology, etc. We will come to the cryptocurrencies and taxability introduced by the government later on. But here what we are talking about, that RBI is going to issue its own digital currency, which will be a legal tender. Cryptocurrency is not a legal tender, as in you cannot use it as money to buy things. While people are doing it, it's a different story. But cryptocurrency in India as of today is not a legal tender of money. So we are bringing our own digital rupee, which will be issued by RBI shortly, and which will be a legal tender as well. Now coming to the tax announcements, the personal tax, let me tell you that again, just for the sake of repetition, the way we look at the budget has changed drastically, right? Till few years ago, we were focusing on, as far as the budget is concerned, what is in the store for the Aam Aadmi, what is in the store for the individuals, whether my slab rates are going to increase, whether my ATC benefit is going to increase, whether my ATD benefit is going to increase. That was the mindset earlier. But now let me tell you from my own personal experience, or my own personal, I would say, view on the budget has been changed since past few years. And we have been looking at it more from the expenditure budget rather than from the income budget, that what are we going to spend on, and where are we going to spend on. So if you see this budget, it is focusing purely on infrastructure development, be it PM Gati Shakti Yojana, the 4 priorities of the government. That is the PM Gati Shakti Yojana, the productivity enhancement, investment and sunrise opportunities, energy transition, climate action. So we are looking at it from the alternate energy sources also, be it solar, be it thermal, etc. Inclusive development, and last 4th pillar or the 4th priority is about the financial investments. So now, as I said, the viewpoint or the way of looking at the budget is not about the slab rates or reduction in tax rates, etc. But it is more about what are we giving to the individuals as an earning opportunity rather than the tax benefits or the tax savings. So this budget, to my mind, is not giving us tax benefits or increase in slab rates, but it is giving us opportunities to be, to be a part of this growth story, with a capex of almost 10.68 lakh crores being promised this year, where we are investing in all the 7 engines of the infrastructure, be it roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transportation, waterways, and of course the logistics infra. With this, I believe that there was no scope for reduction of tax rate. In fact, I am happy that the tax rates or the tax base has not been increased, because the way the spend is, in fact, when I was listening to the budget, I was very tense that on a lighter note, itna sara kharcha kar diya, I hope that there is no increase in the tax rates, because we, the middle class people, being the Shravan Kumars of the economy, right, we have very limited taxpayers as far as the entire population is concerned. And we, the middle class people, are one of the major contributors as far as the tax burden is concerned. And also the salaried people, including myself, we feel that we are Shravan Kumars, or the Shravans of this country, who have the entire tax collections on their head, be it direct tax, be it GST. We are the major contributors to the taxation. So coming to the personal taxation, there is no change in the basic exemption limit. Slab rate remains the same, tax rates remain the same. Easier for us to remember. No change as such. Of course, the COVID related payments, the government has announced this earlier also. So they have brought this amendment in section, bringing in this exemption that any amount received, right, on account of treatment for COVID for self or family from the employer. So if I'm an employee, I'm receiving any amount from the employer for treatment of myself or my family members, then it will not be subject to tax, it will be exempt. Also, any sum received by family member on the death of a person from any other person other than employer, it is up to a limit of 10 lakhs, it will not be taxable. Okay. Last but not the least, any sum received by the family members on the death of a person from employer, here there is no limit. You might receive 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs. There is no taxability irrespective of the limit if you are receiving it from your employer, right? Your employer or the deceased person employer, as the case may be. Reduction under section 80DD now allowed even if policy allows the payment to disabled payment prior to the death of the policy holder, that is attaining 60 years of age. So earlier 80DD was available only on death, this policy amount, but now they have extended it to even received when you are alive. So while practically I don't see many people claiming this benefit of 80/80, but yes, this is a welcome move. Last but not the least, increase in the deduction of NPS on employers' contribution. Earlier it was 10%, now it has been increased to 14%. So if your employer contributes to the extent of 14% to your NPS, you can claim this as a deduction again in section 80 TCD rather. So this is another benefit which I would say is given to employee section specific to NPS. Apart from this, there are no changes or no, I would say, amendment in relation to the personal taxation. Moving on to the corporate tax and also other direct tax. So while I have labeled it as corporate tax, it covers all the litigation aspects for non-corporates also. So the direct tax proposals other than individuals, no change in the corporate tax rates. Last date for commencement of manufacturing, which was 31st of March 2023 for new manufacturing setups, which was 31st of March 23, has now been increased to by 1 year to 31st of March 2024. So effectively giving a 1 year window, additional window because of COVID, of course, to the new manufacturing setups to start manufacturing by 31st of March 2024 and claim the benefit of 15% of taxation, the lower rate of taxation. Next, last date of incorporation for eligible startup. So yes, ATIAC also we see that there are lot many startups coming up in the country since past 2 years. So therefore, you see the benefit, this benefit being extended to 1 more year or extended by 1 more year. So this also is being extended to 31st of March 2023. And this may further be extended, I believe, in the future years also with the number of startups being coming. And India has almost become a startup hub. You all might be following also the Shark Tank, etc. on Sony television, and also it is getting huge responses by the investors, the various startups getting the funding, etc. So despite there being lockdown situation, despite there being slowdown in the economy, India has seen a huge surge in terms of the startups. So a step in the right direction to increase the time limit by 1 more year. Long-term capital gains to be subject to surcharge at only 15% as compared to 37%. So as you are aware, as far as the HNIs are concerned, the surcharge rate was as high as 37%, but now it has been reduced or restricted to 15% to bring it at par to other assessees. Also for AOPs, taxation of AOPs has been reduced from 37% to 15%, provided all the members of the AOPs are corporates. Now, what used to happen is that this is specifically for the infrastructure sector, where you need to form a consortium to provide or to deliver a particular project. And when you form a consortium, it ultimately ends up in an AOP model. And as far as the AOP is concerned, they also used to fall at par with the individual assessees. So therefore, their surcharge also was increased up to 37%. So to bring them at par with the other corporate assessees, their surcharge is being capped at 15%. Now coming to the other proposals, that is dispute resolution. Now, as far as the budget amendments are concerned, majority of the amendments are towards this aspect, that is dispute resolution and the litigation management, right? You won't see many amendments in terms of taxability or deduction, etc. While there are a few which we'll discuss in the subsequent slides, the key highlight of the budget is focusing on the dispute resolution and the litigation management. So the very first amendment is basically option to file updated or fresh return within 2 years from the end of an assessment year. Such return cannot result in reduction of income. So this window is available to me to offer higher tax. Can I, or I believe this is just an extension of VSV or Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, if you ask me personally, that you are giving an additional window for me as an assessee to offer higher tax. Now, assuming there have been cases where people have forgot to report their income, be it capital gains, be it interest on saving account, etc., and any other income, for whatever reasons, for the past years. And of course, going forward, we are moving to digitization and auto population of returns. So I don't know whether this will be really required going forward, but still, this is the way it is being looked at it by the government is basically to bring in more transparency and auto compliance or suo motu compliance by the assessees. So the option is basically you can file the revised return or even a fresh return for that matter to offer the income which you have not offered to tax earlier, right? Now this is a rider that you can only increase the tax liability. You cannot reduce the tax liability. You cannot reduce the income, nor you can increase the refund under this particular scheme. Such return cannot be filed if the assessment is initiated or completed. This is another aspect, that if the assessment is already initiated or completed, you cannot file the return under this section. Last but not the least, additional tax of 25% on the aggregate of incremental tax and interest is what I have to pay if such returns are filed within 1 year. If I'm filing after 1 year, I have to pay 50% of the incremental tax and interest. Penalty नहीं लगेगा मुझे, but whatever is the incremental tax and interest, उसका 25% मुझे pay करना है as additional tax. If I am filing it within 1 year, if it is beyond 1 year but before 2 years, then this amount is doubled. I have to pay 50%. I have to pay 50%. So just to give you an example, now the moot question is that this particular amendment is applicable from 1/4/2022. So the question is whether this will be applicable for assessment year 21-22. If you ask me, it is a gray area. But assuming that the benefit is granted for assessment year 21-22 also, take this as an example. Now, my original date for filing return, again in a normal situation, I am not talking about a COVID situation, I am purely talking about a normal situation. What would have been my due date for assessment year 21-22? For belated return under section 139(4), it would have been 31st of December 2021. It would have been 31st of December 2021. Similarly, revised return का भी due date क्या है? 3 months prior to the end of the assessment year. So both the due dates are same. Belated return or revised return, it is 3 months prior to the end of the assessment year. 3 months prior to the end of the assessment year. So it also will be 31st of December 2021. Now, if I have to go on for this scheme, that is section 139(8)(a), which is newly being introduced, the time limit, extended time limit is 24 months, and I get time till 31st of March 2024, provided my assessment has not started or completed. So I get time till 31st of March 2024 to offer additional income. Right? Now, as I said, this amendment is effective 1st of April 2022. Whether updated ROI can be filed for AY 21-22, I believe we need some clarity from the CBDT or the government. But I think time will tell whether we can do this. Possibly, to my mind, we should be able to do this because this is a procedural amendment. And we may be able to offer it for AY 21-22 as well. Updated return, a snapshot, we continue that. Now, this provision will not be applicable if the updated return is a return of loss. As I said, you cannot reduce your income. At the same time, if it is a loss return, you cannot file this. So if I read this, it means assuming I have a loss, which is of 10 crores, 10 करोड़ का लॉस है. अभी मुझे वो लॉस रिड्यूस करके 8 करोड़ करना है. Can I file a return under this section? Yes or no in the chat box, please. Quickly. Yes or no in the chat box. Can I file a revised return for or an updated return under this section, if I have to reduce my loss, no. Praveen Oja says yes, others say no. So if you read this first provision, right, it says the updated return will not be applicable in the case where the return is of a loss. So even if I am reducing my loss, bare reading of this provision says that you are not allowed to file updated return under this section. While logically I should be allowed, but technically the way the act is worded, the proposed amendment is worded, I believe they do not want to give this opportunity for any loss returns. Secondly, has the effect of decreasing the tax liability. As I said, you can only increase the tax liability, you cannot reduce the tax liability under this particular provision, on the basis of original return or revised return already filed. So assuming मेरा income tax 1 crore का liability था, can I file updated return to bring this liability down to 90 lakhs? The answer is no, I cannot do that. As simple as that. Secondly, it is also not applicable if it results in refund. पहले tax payable था जो कि मैंने pay कर दिया, but ultimately now if I am claiming refund, can I do that? The answer is no, I cannot do that. I can do that in the revised return, but I cannot do that in updated return, right? The refund due on the basis of original return or revised return already filed. Search survey cases are out. So assuming if there is a search and survey in this year, that is 21-22, I cannot file updated return for financial year 21-22. Okay. Next, assessment, reassessment, revision is pending or complete. So this is what I already discussed, that if assessment is already in progress, or if reassessment is already in progress, or if revision is already in progress, I do not have the opportunity to file updated return. Now here what is important is, technically speaking, assessment initiate करने के लिए मेरे पास time limit क्या है? What is the time limit to initiate assessment proceedings? Yes, in the chat box. When can the tax officer start the reassessment or basic assessment 143(2) assessment? Yes, in the chat box quickly. Is it 6 months from the end of the financial year or from the end of the year in which return is filed? Right? It is 6 months from the end of the year in which the return is filed. So assuming I have this 6 months window and my assessment is being picked up. So as soon as my assessment is being picked up, as soon as I receive 143(2) notice, I am out of 139(8)(a). I am not allowed to file updated return under 139(8)(a). Clear? So भले बोला गया है कि 2 साल का window है. If assessment is being picked up, there is no window available to me. As simple as that. Next, PMLA, that is Money Laundering Act or black money cases. Obviously, they are not covered here. Information received from overseas jurisdiction under DTAA. अगर section 91 या 92 में से आपको किसी jurisdiction से income tax को information मिला है under the exchange of information under the DTAA, then in those cases also you are not eligible to file updated return. Last but not the least, prosecution initiated cases. Prosecution initiated cases under income tax. Now, many a times we see for TDS defaults, TDS में अगर मेरा कोई default है, delay है, तो वो cases में भी prosecution initiate होता है, right? वो cases में भी prosecution initiate होता है. तो वहां पे भी if I read this provision, it looks like in those cases also those companies or those assessees will not be able to file an updated return. Clear? So this is all about the updated return. Now we move to the next segment on the dispute resolution, that is filing of appeal before tribunal, high court, may be deferred by the tax department on an identical issue which is pending before the jurisdictional high court or Supreme Court. Now, this is in a way a very welcome move as far as the assessee is concerned. Apne perspective say this may not be welcome because our revenue will go down, our fees collection will go down, our assignments will go down, because agar department appeal file nahi karega to ek appeal kam ho jayega. So if you look at it from an overall pendency perspective, it is a good move. If you look at it from the client's perspective, it is a good move, litigation kam hoga. But if you look at it from our perspective, we may be losing out on fees and assignments. Now, all said and done, ये कभी हो सकता है, ये कभी हो सकता है कि suppose in my case there is a favorable order, there is a favorable CIT appeal order, right? And the matter is pending before the High Court, either for my own case or for someone else's case, either for my own case or for someone else's case. मेरा केस होना जरूरी नहीं है, किसी और का रहेगा तो भी चलेगा. Then in that case, the department has an option, both the commissioners, that is my commissioner as well as the other commissioner जिसका matter Supreme Court में या High Court में चल रहा है, they both can form a collegium and decide whether this matter is fit for an appeal or should we wait for the order of the High Court or Supreme Court in the other matter. So that is what this amendment is all about. I have an example also. A question of law, that is Q1, in case of assessee A1 has arisen and A1 has received a favorable decision on Q1 A1 for commissioner from the Commissioner of Appeals. Assuming this is an addition of bogus purchase, assuming this is an addition of bogus purchase where there is a 100% addition. CIT appeal has given me a relief and said 12.5% is the reasonable amount for taxing this particular, that is only the gross profit should be charged. Now we all know that there are various High Court judgments which are in our favor, and there are few pending before the High Court and Tribunal also where the department has filed an appeal. So assuming similar case in case of other assessee, that is A2, in case of other assessee, that is A2, where department's appeal on identical question of law, that is same Q1, in case of A2 is pending before the jurisdictional High Court or Supreme Court, before the jurisdictional High Court or Supreme Court. Then the collegium is of the opinion, collegium means both the commissioners coming together, is of the opinion that Q1A1 and Q1A2 are identical issues of law, are identical questions of law. In that case, the proposed provision of 158 AB can be invoked by the revenue to defer the filing of appeal, on Q1A1 to higher appellate authority, that is ITAT in this case, till a decision of the High Court is communicated to the assessing officer having jurisdiction over A1. So a very welcome move कि अगर किसी और के केस में भी मैटर पेंडिंग है हाई कोर्ट में, सिमिलर मैटर ऑन द सेम ग्राउंड्स, तो भी डिपार्टमेंट अपील फाइल नहीं करेगा, ऐसा ऑप्शन दिया गया है. Now not necessarily in all the cases they will do this, but an option has been given to both the commissioners to form a collegium and decide that no repetitive appeals will be filed on identical issues. Okay, till the time that matter is concluded. Such a decision on deferment will be subject to acceptance by the assessee, that is A1, that the question of law in case of Q1A1 is identical to Q1A2 in case of assessee A2, right? मतलब assessee को भी वो चीज एक्सेप्ट होना चाहिए कि दोनों क्वेश्चन ऑफ लॉ सेम है, right? So clear on this particular aspect before tribunal or High Court, no repetitive appeals. So this is a step to reduce the number of litigations and the pendency of appeals. I don't know how the commissioners will take it and whether they will act upon this particular section or no. Time will tell. Can we move on? Okay. Faceless assessment. Now, last year we saw faceless assessment being introduced. Section 144B9 was the main section which was introduced, which laid down the procedure that if you want to make any addition to the income of the assessee, then one, you will have to issue the show cause notice to the assessee for each such addition, and two, you will have to issue the draft assessment order you will have to issue the draft assessment order before passing the final assessment order. That was the protocol or the procedure laid down under section 144B. And if you read section 144B9, it said that if this procedure is not followed, then the order becomes non-est. Non-est means it was never passed. Non-est means the order will be quashed and it will be like the order was never passed by the assessing officer. Now, based on this, many assessments were closed last year, that is in March or even in April, May, wherein additions were done under the faceless regime without following this protocol, that is without issuing show cause or without issuing the draft assessment order. So many assessees went to high courts. We ourselves have filed approximately 15 to 20 writ petitions before various high courts, and in all these cases the high court has held that all these orders are non-est, or they are either quashed or remanded back to the AO to do fresh assessment after following the procedure or the protocol. Now, this budget, we have a U-turn from the severity or a U-turn from the government. What is that U-turn? They are saying that they are deleting this clause, which we just discussed, 144B9. They are retrospectively deleting, not just now, but retrospectively deleting this clause, void, where the assessment was made void, where the procedure was not followed. So the effect of this will be that all these orders can still be valid even if the procedure under section 144B was not followed. This is the implication. Apart from that, what they are saying is there are different units in the faceless, right? Like assessment unit, verification unit, review unit, technical unit. There are these 4 units. These 4 units will be coordinated through NFAC only, centrally. Next, they say that personal hearing shall be allowed through video conferencing where variation is proposed. So personal hearing आपको मिलेगा, कैसे मिलेगा? VC के through मिलेगा. Last but not the least, timeline for introducing faceless scheme for transfer pricing. अभी faceless जो है वो सिर्फ domestic players के लिए है, transfer pricing cases के लिए और international taxation matters के लिए अभी तक applicable नहीं है. So this may be applicable after 31st of March 2024. So ये 2 साल तक ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग और इंटरनेशनल टैक्स मैटर्स आपका नॉर्मल ज्यूरिसडिक्शनल एओ के पास होगा, फेसलेस रेजिम में नहीं होगा, फेसलेस रेजिम में नहीं होगा. नाउ व्हाट इज द इंपैक्ट ऑफ दिस अमेंडमेंट ऑफ डिलीटिंग 144B? The impact is that if the procedures was not followed, they will not become non-est orders or they will not become void orders. But the real question is, what happens to the orders which are already passed? उस टाइम पे तो ये अमेंडमेंट नहीं था और आज की तारीख में भी ये अमेंडमेंट नहीं है. दिस इज अ प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट. दिस विल बिकम द लॉ ओनली व्हेन द बिल इज पास्ड एंड वी हैव एन फाइनेंस एक्ट इन प्लेस. सो आज की तारीख में दिस इज अ प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट, राइट? सो द क्वेश्चन इज, टुडे इफ देयर इज अ मैटर वेयर द ऑर्डर इज पास्ड not following 144B9, can I still challenge it before the High Court based on the principles of natural justice? The answer to my mind is yes, we can still do that. In fact, in one of our cases, we are doing that, and we are about to file a writ petition before a High Court on a similar matter where the procedure is not followed, but the order is passed without giving opportunity of being heard, without giving show cause notice, without issuing draft assessment order, or without even calling the hearing for the personal hearing. So hum log actually we are in the process of filing a writ petition. Next issue is what happens to orders already quashed by high courts, right? As I said that we ourselves had filed 15 writ petitions, and in all those 15 cases the high court has already quashed or set aside those orders. What happens to those? Because they are saying this is a retrospective amendment. So agar wo retrospective amendment hai, it means they want to negate or reverse these high court judgments. Effectively the attempt is being made to negate or reverse these high court judgments. But if you ask me, these high court judgments will still remain, because at that point in time when the orders were passed, the law which was existent as on that date, that is relevant and not the proposed law, right? So therefore those judgments, my personal view is that those judgments will still prevail and those orders will stay as quashed, even if this amendment is being brought in, while there will be litigation around this aspect. But I firmly believe that for all the orders already passed and the relief granted by the High Court, those High Court orders will still prevail, or those should still prevail. What happens to orders where writ petition is pending to be disposed? Now this will be interesting, where writ petition is filed, already filed and pending for disposal. What happens to those cases? Now again, even in those cases, I firmly believe, I repeat, I firmly believe that the High Court should look at the law which was prevalent when the original order was passed and not the proposed law, right? So even if this amendment is approved by the Parliament and the President and this becomes the act, even then I would still say that the courts will have to look at it from the point of view of the date of order. जब भी order pass किया तभी क्या law था, right? Now we cannot envisage what will be the law in the future. So we have to go by the law which was on the date of passing the order. That is what my argument will be before the court, and the courts should entertain the writ as far as such cases are concerned where writ is already filed. Moving on, reassessment. Now, fortunately, in reassessment also, if you are aware, there were various cases where the new law of reassessment is being introduced, that is section 148 capital A, where the notices etc. are to be issued under that section. However, even after March, the department has continuing to send notices under the old section, that is section 148. So despite of the amendment, the department is still issuing notices under section 148. So there was a fear that for this also they will bring in a retrospective amendment and still hold that all these 148 notices issued even after 31st March are valid. Fortunately, they have not done that, and the various high courts, including Allahabad High Court, Delhi High Court, have held that these notices are invalid. Right? So those judgments will still hold good. However, इन्होंने 148 में दूसरा अमेंडमेंट क्या लाया है कि रीअसेसमेंट का जो नया टाइम लिमिट है, जो पहले 4 साल और 6 साल था, उसको वो लोग ने 3 साल में कर दिया था, and it was extended to 10 years only for certain specific categories or certain specific cases. Now what they are saying is this expansion of 3 years to 10 years will be applicable to cases where expenditure in respect of a transaction or in relation to an event or occasion and the entry or entries in the books, मतलब 68 edition में भी वो 10 साल applicable हो जाएगा, or in respect of any transaction or in relation to any event or occasion. So effectively they are expanding the scope to a larger extent. If you see expenditure in respect of a transaction or in relation to an event or occasion. So एक simple addition है. अभी assessment में क्या होता है? They disallow any expense, right? They disallow any expense. So that will easily fall in this particular aspect. या तो समझो 68 एडिशंस भी आजकल बहुत हो रहा है, एंट्रीज इन द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट एक्सेट्रा. तो वो सिचुएशन में या वो केस में भी ये अमेंडमेंट ट्रिगर हो जाएगा, एंड इफेक्टिवली दे आर वाइडनिंग द स्कोप फॉर रीअसेसमेंट. प्लस दे आर आल्सो इंक्लूडिंग द केस ऑफ ऑडिट ऑब्जेक्शंस, रिसीट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन अंडर द ट्रीटी नेटवर्क एक्सेट्रा. ये सबको भी वो इंक्लूड कर रहे हैं for the basis of reassessment. So this is the new amendment in terms of 148, that is the reassessment. While they have not changed 148 applicability to the subsequent period, what they have changed is they have brought in an extension in the scope of reassessment beyond 3 years, and also the cases where audit objection is like audit objection, receipt of information under treaty network, etc., can also be the basis for reassessment. Next, clarification on revision of order of TPO by PCIT or CIT. Now, earlier or currently, section 263 does not cover the TPO's order. Currently, 263 does not cover TPO's order, but now 263 is being amended to expand and to bring it the TPO order also. So here, AO to modify the assessment order within 2 months from the end of the month in which such order matlab 263 wala order is received from the TPO. So this is another amendment where 263 increase हुआ है, 264 नहीं 263, which is prejudicial to the interest of the revenue, not the assessee. Assessee वाला 264 है, ये revenue वाला है. Next, the powers of CIT are expanded to initiate penalty proceedings. पहले penalty proceeding कौन initiate कर सकता था? Only the AO. But now they are saying CIT also can initiate the penalty proceedings in certain cases involving undisclosed income where search has been initiated or for false entry in the books of account. So search के cases में अभी CIT appeal को भी powers दिया है कि they can also levy a penalty. CIT appeal also can levy a penalty. Provision introduced to enable resident taxpayers to claim refund of taxes withheld in a net of tax arrangement by making an application before the tax officer. Now, क्या होता था? Net of tax arrangement में पहले net of tax arrangement is basically an arrangement where we say that 100 rupees का bill है तो overseas party को 100 rupees ही payment चाहिए. TDS जो है that will be borne by the Indian party only or the Indian customer only. So these are the cases which are called as net of tax arrangements. अभी ये केस में पहले कोई प्रोविजन नहीं था कि अगर मैंने कोई ज्यादा टैक्स पे कर दिया है तो मैं उसका रिफंड क्लेम कर सकूं, राइट? बिकॉज टैक्स तो मैंने पे किया है, रेसिडेंट टैक्स पेयर ने. सो ये केस में व्हाट दे आर डूइंग इज दे आर गिविंग दिस एडवांटेज और बेनिफिट कि अगर मैंने कोई ज्यादा टैक्स पे कर दिया है देन द रेसिडेंट पेयर जो ग्रॉस अप कर रहा है ही कैन क्लेम रिफंड of taxes withheld in the net of tax arrangement by making an application before the tax officer. अभी टैक्स ऑफिसर ने अगर वो क्लेम रिजेक्ट कर दिया, टैक्स ऑफिसर ने मुझे वो रिफंड नहीं दिया, तो मैं CIT अपील में जा सकता हूं. दिस ऑर्डर ऑफ रिजेक्शन इज मेड अपीलेबल. दिस ऑर्डर इज मेड अपीलेबल. सो अज्यूमिंग मेरा लायबिलिटी बनता था 11 रुपए का, मैंने गलती से 15 रुपया पे कर दिया है, सो 4 रुपीज का रिफंड मैं मांग सकता हूं. और अगर ऑफिसर ने वो 4 रुपीज का रिफंड रिजेक्ट कर दिया तो उस रिजेक्शन ऑर्डर के अगेंस्ट में मैं CIT अपील फाइल कर सकता हूं. आई कैन फाइल अपील बिफोर CIT अपील और ITAT एज द केस में भी. ओके, नाउ मूविंग ऑन टू द डिडक्शन सेक्शंस एंड कंप्यूटेशन ऑफ इनकम. डिसअलाउंस अंडर सेक्शन 48(2). डिसअलाउंस अंडर सेक्शन 48(2). अभी क्या होता था, जस्ट टू गिव यू अ बैकग्राउंड, पिछले 2-3 सालों से कुछ असेसीज इंक्लूडिंग द टाटा ग्रुप एंड ऑल वेर क्लेमिंग द एजुकेशन सेस एज अ डिडक्टेबल एक्सपेंस. द एजुकेशन सेस एज अ डिडक्टेबल एक्सपेंस, जो कि डिपार्टमेंट उसको डिसअलाउ करता था. बट अल्टीमेटली हाईकोर्ट ने, देयर आर फ्यू हाईकोर्ट जजमेंट्स इंक्लूडिंग बॉम्बे हाईकोर्ट, जिन्होंने बोला है कि एजुकेशन सेस इज नॉट अ टैक्स, इट इज एन एडिशनल लेवी. देयरफॉर उसका आप डिडक्शन क्लेम कर सकते हो, उसका आप डिडक्शन क्लेम कर सकते हो. ये काफी सारे हाई कोर्ट्स ने बोला. बट नाउ डिपार्टमेंट या CBDT ने रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव अमेंडमेंट लाया है. रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव मतलब व्हाट दे आर सेइंग इज दे आर इंसर्टिंग दिस explanation with effect from 1st of April 2005, wherein they say that tax includes surcharge or cess and it is not allowable under section 48(2). Now, if you ask me personally, I had always advised my clients that to my mind this argument is not correct कि आप 48(2) में ऐसा आर्ग्यूमेंट लो कि सेस नहीं आएगा एंड यू क्लेम. मैंने मेरे सभी क्लाइंट्स को प्रैक्टिकली एडवाइस किया था कि yes, while there are judgments, to my mind I do not technically agree with this view कि education cess is not tax and therefore you can continue claiming it as a deduction. But since there were few high court judgments, many assessees were claiming this as a deduction. So now all those judgments stand reversed, and they say that explanation is inserted with retrospective effect from 1st of April 2005. From 1st of April 2005. So now effectively what happens to those high court rulings, वो भी शायद, I am saying शायद, reverse हो सकते हैं. That is, the department will try to levy tax on those deductions claimed earlier also. भले हाई कोर्ट ने फेवरेबल जजमेंट दिया है, डिपार्टमेंट में स्टिल चैलेंज दैट बिफोर द सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड claim that this is taxable, or rather this is not deductible. The education says is not deductible is something what the department can challenge even now. That is for the past years also. Next, section 37 में amendment लाया गया है. Again they are saying that it is clarified that the expenditure incurred for any purpose which is an offense or prohibited by law, which is an offense or prohibited by law, will include offense prohibition under any law either in India or outside. पहले सिर्फ इंडिया वाला ही कवर था, अभी आउटसाइड वाला भी उन्होंने यहाँ पे कवर कर लिया. ठीक है. Providing benefit or perquisite, the acceptance of which is a violation of law, regulation or guideline. अभी ये स्पेसिफिकली लाया गया है for the doctors and medical professionals. For the doctors and medical professionals. You might be aware that again for this also there are various high court judgments, including Bombay High Court, which was I think issued 15-20 days back only, जहाँ पे कोर्ट्स ने बोला है कि अगर आप किसी डॉक्टर को कोई फ्रीबी या कुछ देते हो, then that is not violative of the law, while there is a circular of IMA, Indian Medical Association. But even despite of that circular, the high courts have held that this amount is a deductible expense and it is not in violation of any law. Now, to overcome these judgments, what they have done is they have brought in this amendment कि providing benefit or perquisite, it means freebies to doctors, is in violation of the regulation, that is the medical association regulation, and therefore it is not allowed, or it was never intended to be allowed. It was never intended to be allowed. Last but not the least, compounding of any offense under any law. अगर मैंने किसी law में compounding में कोई payment किया है, that also will not be allowed. Again here, whether in India or outside India, so they are covering compounding outside India also. So expansion of disallowance under section 37. Now here what is an interesting thing is that this amendment is effective from 1st of April 2022, but they are saying it is clarificatory in nature. So again, the risk of taking it retrospectively is higher, but technically speaking this has to be a prospective amendment and not a retrospective amendment. So मेरे हिसाब से ये prospective amendment होगा, retrospective amendment नहीं होगा. Next, the hot topic of discussion, VDA, taxation of cryptocurrencies or taxation of virtual digital asset. Just a second. Sorry, there is some procession going on, so some background noise. So just went to close the windows. So next aspect of taxation of VDA, that is virtual digital asset, which means cryptocurrencies in layman's language. Now, first of all, what do you mean by VDA? VDA होता क्या है? VDA is nothing but cryptocurrencies. That is VDA to include cryptocurrencies and NFTs. NFT is nothing but non-fungible tokens, and other digital assets. Other digital assets means anything, any asset other than those currencies, other than those which are currencies as per FEMA. So आपका सभी क्रिप्टो करेंसी, सभी क्रिप्टो एसेट्स इसमें आ जाएगा, NFTs भी इसमें आ जाएगा. So they want to tax these the gains from these at the rate of highest rate of 30%. अभी जैसा गैम्बलिंग होता है, विनिंग फ्रॉम हॉर्स रेसेस होता है, विनिंग फ्रॉम लॉटरीज होता है, they are bringing it to the same category, VDAs, that is cryptocurrencies. With effect from 1st of April 2022, this will be taxable at the rate of 30%. ठीक है, 30% पे तो टैक्स होगा ही होगा, प्लस इसमें आपको कोई डिडक्शन भी नहीं मिलेगा, इसमें आपको कोई डिडक्शन भी नहीं मिलेगा, सिर्फ आपको कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन जो है वही आपको डिडक्शन मिलेगा. कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन क्या है वो डिफाइन नहीं किया है. सो आई बिलीव कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन हैज टू बी माय परचेज प्राइस, ओरिजिनल परचेज प्राइस. ओके, वही आपको डिडक्शन मिलेगा और कोई डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा. अगर आपने क्रिप्टो करेंसी 50 लाख में खरीदा है, 50 लाख में खरीदा है और वो क्रिप्टो करेंसी को आपने 40 लाख में बेचा है, 10 लाख का लॉस है, ये लॉस भी आपको नहीं मिलेगा. आई रिपीट, ये लॉस भी आपको नहीं मिलेगा. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, कैन आई सेट ऑफ दिस लॉस अगेंस्ट एनी अदर गेन? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मेरा एक क्रिप्टो करेंसी में गेन है, दूसरे क्रिप्टो करेंसी में लॉस है, क्या ये मैं एक दूसरे के सामने सेट ऑफ कर सकता हूं? द आंसर इज नो. The way the law is worded, the proposed amendment is worded, you cannot do this inter-head set off also. If you want, you can compare these wordings with the same wording in section 115 BBE, जो कि section 68 amendment के लिए है. वहां पे भी similar wordings है कि आपको set off नहीं मिलेगा. Plus, you can compare these wordings with section 73A, जो की है स्पेक्युलेटिव बिजनेस के लिए. राइट, इफ यू सी स्पेक्युलेटिव बिजनेस का जो कैरी फॉरवर्ड और ब्रॉड फॉरवर्ड का जो अमेंडमेंट जो सेक्शंस है, उसमें लिखा गया है कि आप स्पेक्युलेटिव लॉस किसी स्पेक्युलेटिव गेन के सामने ही सेट ऑफ कर सकते हो. तो वहां पे दे आर अलाउइंग मी टू सेट ऑफ इंट्रा हेड बेसिकली. बट हियर द वर्डिंग्स आर ऑल टुगेदर डिफरेंट. दे आर सेइंग नो डिडक्शंस और एक्सपेंसेस और लॉसेस. आपको कोई डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा, एक्सपेंसेस का भी नहीं और लॉसेस का भी नहीं. और इफ यू रीड इट फर्दर, इट सेज नो सेट ऑफ एंड कैरी फॉरवर्ड ऑफ लॉसेस. तो आपको सेट ऑफ भी नहीं मिलेगा ना इस साल में ना अगले साल में, और कैरी फॉरवर्ड भी नहीं मिलेगा. इट मींस ये 10 लाख का लॉस मेरा संक कॉस्ट हो जाएगा. ये 10 लाख का लॉस मेरा संक कॉस्ट हो जाएगा. That is the reading of the law, the way it is worded or drafted as of now. Right? You may want to argue कि मुझे एक क्रिप्टो का लॉस दूसरे क्रिप्टो के लॉस के गेन के सामने सेट ऑफ करने दो, but my reading of the law says this is not permissible based on the current drafted law. Secondly, they are also saying transfer of VDAs are under the net of 56(2)(10. अभी फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मैंने किसी को गिफ्ट में दे दिया क्रिप्टो करेंसी. मेरे पास क्रिप्टो करेंसी था, मैंने किसी को गिफ्ट में दे दिया विदाउट एनी कंसिडरेशन. अभी हमने देखा 56(2)(10 में क्या क्या कवर होता है. इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी कवर होता है, मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी कवर होता है, ज्वेलरीज, बिलियन एक्सेट्रा, ये सब कवर होता है सेक्शन 56 में. इफ आई एम रिसीविंग फ्रॉम नॉन रिलेटिव्स and if the difference between the actual consideration and fair market value is more than 50,000, then that is subject to tax under section 56(2)(10. अभी उस डेफिनेशन में उन्होंने VDA को भी इंक्लूड कर दिया है in the category of assets. It also includes VDA. That is, अगर मुझे कोई क्रिप्टो करेंसी फ्री में मिला है, गिफ्ट में मिला है या मार्केट वैल्यू से कम में मिला है, so that also will be subject to gift tax under section 56(2)(10 in the hands of the recipient. ठीक है, अभी यहाँ पे डबल टैक्सेशन भी हो सकता है. कैसे डबल टैक्सेशन होगा? अगर समझो किसी ने मुझे बेचा है एट अ प्राइस विच इज लेस देन द फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू, तो उसके हाथ में भी वो टैक्स होगा और मेरे हाथ में भी 56(2)(10 में टैक्स होगा. सो देयर इज अ रिस्क ऑफ डबल टैक्सेशन, यस, बट इन द हैंड्स ऑफ टू डिफरेंट पीपल. नाउ व्हाट आई हैव सीन is they have also included TDS. They have also included TDS at the rate of 1%. 194S में TDS लाया गया है at the rate of 1%. on the payment for transfer of VDA to a resident, on transfer of VDA to a resident with effect from 1st of July 2022. तो अगर किसी VDA को मैंने परचेस किया है इंडिविजुअली 1 जुलाई के बाद या 1 जुलाई या उसके बाद, तो मुझे उस पे TDS काटना पड़ेगा, मुझे उस पे TDS काटना पड़ेगा एज अ बायर, एज अ बायर। ठीक है, थ्रेशोल्ड क्या है इसमें, 10,000 से ज्यादा का रहेगा तो TDS आ जाएगा। फॉर इंडिविजुअल एंड HUF हु आर नॉट सब्जेक्ट टू टैक्स ऑडिट, और जिनका टर्नओवर 1 करोड़ से कम है, आई विल नॉट यूज द वर्ड नॉट सब्जेक्ट टू टैक्स ऑडिट बिकॉज वहां पे थ्रेशोल्ड जो दिया गया है दैट इज उस टर्नओवर इज लेस देन 1 करोड़। अभी टैक्स ऑडिट का टर्नओवर लिमिट 10 करोड़ तक हो गया है, so I will not use the term applicable to tax audit. I will use the term if their turnover is less than 1 crore तो 50,000 का लिमिट है, but for other assessees the threshold limit is 10,000. अगर 10,000 से ज्यादा का पेमेंट है for acquisition of VDA you will have to do TDS or withholding under section 194S at the rate of 1%, at the rate of 1%. अभी ऐसा भी हो सकता है, ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि मैंने कोई सर्विस लिया, मैंने कोई सर्विस लिया जिसका पेमेंट करने के जगह पे मैंने क्रिप्टो करेंसी दे दिया। ठीक है, हाइपोथेटिकल एग्जांपल, मैंने फ्लैट लिया, मैंने फ्लैट लिया 50 लाख का फ्लैट लिया समझो, और वो 50 लाख के फ्लैट के बदले में मैंने 60 लाख का VDA दे दिया, क्रिप्टो करेंसी दे दिया, राइट? कोई कैश कंपोनेंट है ही नहीं। तो इस केस में क्या होगा, person liable for TDS, that is the purchaser, to ensure that tax has been paid if there is no cash payment or cash component is insufficient to cover the TDS liability. ठीक है, तो ये केस क्या हो गया, बार्टर का केस हो गया। बार्टर, मैंने कोई सर्विस या कमोडिटी लिया है जिसके सामने मैंने क्रिप्टो करेंसी दे दिया, ये हो गया पूरा कंप्लीट बार्टर। तो यहाँ पे मुझे क्या इंश्योर करना है कि जो TDS है या जो टैक्स लायबिलिटी है वो लायबिलिटी पे हो गया है, टैक्स लायबिलिटी है, एंश्योर दैट द टैक्स हैज बीन पेड एंड देयर इज नो कैश पेमेंट। अभी दूसरा एग्जांपल हो सकता है सेम केस में कि मैंने 50 लाख का फ्लैट लिया, 50 लाख का फ्लैट लिया और कुछ 50,000 का मैंने क्रिप्टो करेंसी दिया, 50,000 का मैंने क्रिप्टो करेंसी दिया। ठीक है, सो यहाँ पे समझो अगर कैश कंपोनेंट कम है, मतलब मैंने कैश कंपोनेंट 50,000 दिया, बाकी का क्रिप्टो करेंसी दिया, कैश कंपोनेंट 50,000 दिया और बाकी का क्रिप्टो करेंसी दिया। सो इफ माय TDS लायबिलिटी इज लेस देन माय कैश कलेक्शन आल्सो, तो वहां पे भी मुझे ये चीज इंश्योर करनी है कि सामने वाले ने टैक्स पे कर दिया है, कि सामने वाले ने टैक्स पे कर दिया है। दैट इज व्हाट आई नीड टू इंश्योर एज अ पर्सन लायबल टू डिडक्ट TDS। Last but not the least, exchange of VDA, both the parties could be liable to TDS. मतलब मैंने क्रिप्टो करेंसी दिया, सामने वाले ने दूसरा कोई NFT मुझे दिया, तो उसमें भी TDS कौन भरेगा, दोनों को लायबिलिटी आ सकता है, दोनों को लायबिलिटी आ सकता है। क्लियर? So this is all about cryptocurrencies. This is all about cryptocurrencies. आगे जाते हैं डिडक्शंस में। सेक्शन 14A में अमेंडमेंट लाया गया है। अभी देयर आर वेरियस हाई कोर्ट रूलिंग्स अगेन हियर जो बोलते हैं, अभी 14A क्या है, एक्सपेंसेस इन रिलेशन टू एग्जेम्प्ट इनकम। ठीक है, देयर आर मेनी जजमेंट्स इंक्लूडिंग बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट, जहां पे कोर्ट्स ने बोला है कि अगर आपका कोई एग्जेम्प्ट इनकम नहीं है, अगर आपका कोई एग्जेम्प्ट इनकम नहीं है तो आपको 14A में डिसअलाउंस नहीं होगा, तो आपको 14A में डिसअलाउंस नहीं होगा। Now to overcome these judgments, they have amended section 14A and they say no deduction allowed for expenditure incurred in relation to an exempt income even where no exempt income has been accrued or earned during the year. तो ये सारे जजमेंट्स को रिवर्स करने के लिए ये अमेंडमेंट लाया गया है, ये सारे जजमेंट्स को रिवर्स करने के लिए ये अमेंडमेंट लाया गया है। अभी इसमें इशू क्या है, अमेंडमेंट सेज इट इज इफेक्टिव 1 अप्रैल 2022, बट क्या बोलते हैं वो, इट इज क्लैरिफिकेटरी इन नेचर, इट इज क्लैरिफिकेटरी इन नेचर। सो एक रिस्क है कि डिपार्टमेंट इसको रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली एप्लीकेबल करने का ट्राई कर सकता है, बट इफ यू आस्क मी पर्सनली दिस इज अ प्रोस्पेक्टिव अमेंडमेंट एंड नॉट रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव अमेंडमेंट। while डिपार्टमेंट ट्राई करेगा इसको रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव करने का, बट ये होगा नहीं रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव, दिस विल बी प्रोस्पेक्टिव बिकॉज द बिल इटसेल्फ सेज दैट दिस इज इफेक्टिव 1st of April 2022. Next is conversion of interest payable on existing liability into debentures or any other instrument will not be considered as actually paid. अभी इसमें क्या होता था कि suppose I have some interest outstanding, suppose I have some interest outstanding of say 10 lakh rupees, but I am not able to repay that interest. So what I do is मैं लेंडर के पास जाता हूँ और ये इंटरेस्ट को कन्वर्ट करा देता हूँ डिबेंचर में, ये इंटरेस्ट को कन्वर्ट करा देता हूँ डिबेंचर में. सो लास्ट ईयर का ये मेरा समझो इंटरेस्ट आउटस्टैंडिंग है एंड द अमाउंट इज 10 लाख रुपीस, अमाउंट इज 10 लाख रुपीस. ये साल में उसको कन्वर्ट कर देता हूँ डिबेंचर में. सो 10 लाख कन्वर्टेड इनटू डिबेंचर. एंट्री क्या पास होगा, इंटरेस्ट पेएबल अकाउंट डेबिट टू डिबेंचर अकाउंट. तो मेरा इंटरेस्ट बुक्स में से चला गया और डिबेंचर खड़ा हो गया. तो ये केस में क्या होता था, पीपल यूज्ड टू टेक दैट दिस डिबेंचर जो मैंने 43B में डिसअलाउ किया था, अभी मैं इसको कंप्यूटेशन, ये इंटरेस्ट जो मैंने 43B में डिसअलाउ किया था पहले, अभी इसको मैं अलाउ कर दूंगा, अभी इसको मैं अलाउ कर दूंगा ऑन द ग्राउंड दैट इंटरेस्ट हैज बीन स्क्वायर्ड ऑफ, और इंटरेस्ट अभी नहीं रहा, अभी वो डिबेंचर बन गया है. सो दे कंसीडर्ड इट टू बी डीम्ड पेड. ठीक है, तो ये सिचुएशन में इंटरेस्ट लायबिलिटी जो कन्वर्ट हुआ है वो आपको 43B में अलाउ नहीं होगा. ये सिर्फ तभी अलाउ होगा जब भी आप डिबेंचर का एक्चुअल रीपेमेंट करोगे, जब भी आप डिबेंचर का एक्चुअल रीपेमेंट करोगे तभी ये अलाउ होगा, उसके अलावा ये अलाउ नहीं होगा. क्लियर? नेक्स्ट, नो सेट ऑफ allowed for any losses or unabsorbed depreciation against any undisclosed income detected during search and survey operations. अभी यहाँ पे भी क्या होता था कि सपोज मेरे फैक्ट्री पे, मेरे ऑफिस में, मेरे घर पे रेड हुआ या सर्च हुआ या सर्वे हुआ. They found goods, my inventory, they found goods, unaccounted goods or unaccounted inventory, undisclosed inventory or undisclosed goods. उनको मेरे गोडाउन पे या मेरे फैक्ट्री पे या मेरे ऑफिस में कहीं पे तो मिला. ठीक है, ऑफिसर बोलता है दिस इज अनएक्सप्लेन्ड, आई विल टैक्स दिस अंडर सेक्शन 115 BBE और आई विल टैक्स दिस एज इन्वेंटरी, आई विल ऐड दिस. ठीक है, तो इसमें लोग क्या बोलते थे कि ठीक है मेरे पास ब्रॉड फॉरवर्ड लॉसेस पड़ा है, मेरे पास ब्रॉड फॉरवर्ड लॉसेस पड़ा है, ये इनकम के सामने मैं वो लॉस का सेट ऑफ कर दूंगा, मैं वो लॉस का सेट ऑफ कर दूंगा. नाउ दे आर ट्राइंग टू ब्रिंग इन एन अमेंडमेंट टू कवर सच केसेस कि आपको कोई सेट ऑफ नहीं मिलेगा, आपको कोई सेट ऑफ नहीं मिलेगा. इफ यू रिमेंबर देयर इज सेक्शन 115 BBE फॉर एडिशंस इन सेक्शन 68 एक्सेट्रा. तो वहां पे भी स्पेसिफिकली लिखा गया है कि आपको कोई सेट ऑफ या कैरी फॉरवर्ड ऑफ लॉस नहीं मिलेगा. इसके लिए एक 2016 का सर्कुलर भी है जो बोलता है कि सर्च केसेस में आपको सेट ऑफ या ब्रॉड फॉरवर्ड लॉसेस नहीं मिलेगा. सो नाउ दे हैव ब्रॉट इन बाय वे ऑफ अमेंडमेंट विद इन द एक्ट इटसेल्फ, दे आर सेइंग नो सेट ऑफ अलाउड फॉर एनी लॉस और अनएब्सॉर्ब्ड डेप्रिसिएशन अगेंस्ट अनडिस्क्लोज्ड इनकम. सो अगर आपका कोई इनकम अनडिस्क्लोज्ड इनकम सर्च में या सर्वे में पाया गया है तो आपको उस पे इन शॉर्ट टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा. आप सेट ऑफ या कैरी फॉरवर्ड लॉस का बेनिफिट नहीं ले सकते, आप ब्रॉड फॉरवर्ड लॉस का सेट ऑफ नहीं ले सकते. एज सिंपल एज दैट. Next, the amendment is being brought in section 68 जो बोलते हैं कि requirement of explaining the nature, source and source of source is extended to any loan borrowing taken by the assessee. पहले क्या होता था, मैंने किससे लोन दिया वो मैं डिस्क्लोज कर देता था कि सपोज आई हैव टेकन लोन फ्रॉम XYZ, मैंने XYZ का नाम, एड्रेस, पैन नंबर, अमाउंट एक्सेट्रा सब दे दिया, तो मेरा काम खत्म. फिर अभी असेसिंग ऑफिसर को उसको समन करना है, 133(6) करना है, दैट इज हिज लुकआउट. नाउ व्हाट दे आर सेइंग इज इट इज द ओनर्स ऑफ द असेसी, मतलब मेरा ही लुकआउट है टू डिस्क्लोज द सोर्स ऑफ द सोर्स. मतलब जो मैंने लोन लिया है, सपोज मिस्टर एक्स से लोन लिया है, तो मुझे एक्स का भी सोर्स जानना पड़ेगा कि एक्स के पास ये पैसा कहां पे आया, एक्स के पास ये पैसा कहां पे आया. ये अमेंडमेंट दिया गया है सेक्शन 68 में कि अगेन टू ओवरकम ऑल द फेवरेबल रूलिंग्स इन द फेवर ऑफ द असेसी, जो बोलते हैं कि मैंने प्राइमरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी मेरा हो गया है, मैंने सब डिटेल दे दिया है, राइट, लेंडर का डिटेल मैंने सब दे दिया है. So my primary responsibility is over. So now there cannot be any addition in 68. So now the amendment says no, nothing doing. आपको आपके लेंडर का भी डिटेल्स और उसका सोर्स क्या है वो भी देना पड़ेगा. आपका सोर्स वो लेंडर है, वो लेंडर का भी सोर्स आपको सबमिट करना पड़ेगा, तभी आपका 68 में एडिशन नहीं होगा. Very wide expansion of section 68 and this can impact lot many SSCs. Yeah, so this is what it is. New proviso inserted to provide that in respect of credit by way of loan, borrowing, explanation offered by the assessee shall be deemed to be not satisfactory. It will not be satisfactory unless explanation is also offered by the lender about the nature and source of the sum and the AO finds the same satisfactory. मतलब मुझे उसको प्रोवाइड भी करना है और AO उससे सेटिस्फाई भी होना चाहिए. अगर AO सेटिस्फाई नहीं है तो ये 68 में एडिशन हो जाएगा और 60% पे टैक्स होगा अंडर सेक्शन 115 BBE. सो अ ड्रैकोनियन प्रोविजन. अगेन की कंसिडरेशन क्या है? that it will require companies to determine the source of the borrowing in the hands of the lender. So lender का भी source मुझे जानना अभी जरूरी हो गया है. लेंडर का भी सोर्स मुझे जानना जरूरी हो गया है. सो जो भी एग्जिस्टिंग लोन या बोरोइंग है उसको भी मुझे रिव्यू करना पड़ेगा. जो भी एग्जिस्टिंग लोन या बोरोइंग है उसको भी मुझे रिव्यू करना पड़ेगा. द रीजन बीइंग ऑफिसर कैन डिसअलाउ इट नाउ आल्सो. ऑफिसर कैन डू एडिशन अंडर सेक्शन 68 नाउ आल्सो लुकिंग एट माय करंट बैलेंस शीट. Looking at my current balance sheet also he can do that. So therefore it is very, very important and relevant for us to understand the existing borrowings also and their source of source rather. अभी हम आते हैं TDS and other amendments पे. अभी इनकम टैक्स में एक सेक्शन है सेक्शन 28 सबसेक्शन 4. सेक्शन 28 सबसेक्शन 4 जो बोलता है that if you are receiving any benefit or perquisite, if you are receiving any benefit or perquisite only in kind or partially in cash or partly in cash and partly in kind, तो वहां पे आपको 28(4) में वो अमाउंट टैक्सेबल हो जाएगा. नाउ दे आर सेइंग इस पे भी TDS, इस पे भी 10% TDS. So assuming some company is making some perquisite payment to its directors or to its key management personnel KMPs, then in that case it will be subject to TDS under section 194R at the rate of 10%. At the rate of 10% if this amount exceeds 20,000 in a financial year. If this amount exceeds 20,000 in a financial year. So अगर 1 लाख का कोई परक्यूजिट दिया है इधर कैश में या काइंड में does not matter, तो TDS एप्लीकेबल हो जाएगा at the rate of 10% under section 194R. Under section 194R. टैक्स कलेक्शन टू बी एंश्योर्ड इन केसेस जो हमने पहले भी देखा था क्रिप्टो करेंसीज वाले में कि अगर काइंड में है फुल्ली इन काइंड और पार्टली इन काइंड जहां पे कैश कंपोनेंट इज नॉट इनफ टू कवर द TDS लायबिलिटी, तो वहां पे डिडक्टर का लायबिलिटी बन जाता है टू एंश्योर दैट द टैक्स इज पेड, that the tax is paid by the other party. This amendment is effective from 1st of July 2022. जनरली TDS का जो भी अमेंडमेंट्स होता है प्रोसीजर होता है इसके लिए वो 1st of July 22 से एप्लीकेबल होता है या 1st of July से एप्लीकेबल होता है कभी भी. So this is 194R for you, business perquisites. Again, key issues: valuation of perquisite. How do I value this? What could be construed as business perquisite? How do I determine whether this is business perquisite or something else? Last but not the least, practical challenges on deductibility of TDS on account of person receiving benefit and the same person offering the corresponding income to tax. अगर वो income offer भी कर रहा है because in any which way it is taxable in 28(4). So therefore उस केस में अगर वो tax भी पे कर रहा है तो मुझे TDS कैसे पे करने का है? Whether should I consider the tax which is already paying or should I do tax TDS at the rate of 10% and then you will take the credit of 10% and pay balance as advance tax? That remains as an ambiguity. Ideally this is how it should be, but we never know how the department will interpret it. Next, higher rate of TDS or TCS 206 AB and TCS under section 206 CCA. अभी पहले क्या है, लास्ट ईयर में ये अमेंडमेंट आया था कि अगर किसी पार्टी ने रिटर्न फाइल नहीं किया है लास्ट 2 साल का, अगर किसी पार्टी ने लास्ट 2 साल का रिटर्न फाइल नहीं किया है तो उसका टीडीएस हाईएस्ट रेट पे होगा, उसका टीडीएस हाईएस्ट रेट पे होगा एट द रेट ऑफ अंडर सेक्शन 206 AB, राइट। नाउ दे आर सेइंग आपको पिछले 2 साल देखने का जरूरत नहीं है, आप सिर्फ 1 ही साल देखो। सो बिट ऑफ रिलैक्सेशन, 2 साल की जगह पे 1 ही साल देखना है। इमीडिएट पास्ट ईयर आपको चेक करना है कि रिटर्न फाइल किया है या नहीं किया है। डिपार्टमेंट ने यूटिलिटी भी बाहर निकाला है टू चेक वेदर द पार्टी हैज फाइल्ड द रिटर्न और नॉट, ठीक है। सो दैट इज द अमेंडमेंट। 2 साल का 1 साल हो गया यहाँ पे। Penalty for failure to furnish information, various returns and statements like SFT, that is specified financial transaction का रिटर्न का पेनल्टी था 100 रुपया पर डे। अगर आपने नहीं भरा, फाइल नहीं किया तो 100 रुपया पर डे पेनल्टी या फाइन था। अभी उन्होंने वो 100 रुपये को बढ़ा के 500 पर डे किया है, 5 टाइम्स सीवियर पेनल्टी। 100 का 5 टाइम बढ़ा के 500 रुपया कर दिया। नेक्स्ट, प्रोसिक्यूशन प्रोविजंस जो अभी तक सिर्फ टीडीएस के लिए था फॉर सेकंड एंड सब्सिक्वेंट ऑफेंसेस, नाउ हैव बीन एक्सटेंडेड टू टीसीएस डिफॉल्ट आल्सो। नाउ हैव बीन एक्सटेंडेड टू टीसीएस डिफॉल्ट आल्सो। सेकंड लास्ट इज डिविडेंड फ्रॉम फॉरेन कंपनीज, जो अभी तक एग्जेम्प्ट हुआ करता था और रेदर कंसेशनल रेट लगता था 15%, राइट। फॉरेन कंपनी के डिविडेंड पे कंसेशनल रेट लगता था 15%। ये स्लोली एंड स्टेडीली फेज आउट हो जाएगा फ्रॉम 2022-23 and now it will be taxed at the normal rate because Indian dividend भी अभी टैक्स होता है, Indian dividend भी अभी टैक्स होता है नॉर्मल रेट पे। So therefore to bring them at par with the foreign dividend, they are bringing in this amendment कि जो concessional rate of 15% है will be phased out slowly and steadily. Last may not be applicable इतना generally, but just for the sake of completeness I have included reporting requirement applicable to film producers. Reporting requirement applicable to film producers relating to payment in excess of 50,000. Relating to payment in excess of 50,000 extended to other specified taxpayers in the media. मतलब मीडिया एंड एंटरटेनमेंट जो भी है प्लेयर्स, सबको ये एक्सटेंड हो गया है। अर्लियर इट वाज रिस्ट्रिक्टेड टू फिल्म प्रोड्यूसर्स, नाउ इट इज एप्लीकेबल टू ऑल अदर टेक्नीशियंस आल्सो। IFSC गिफ्ट सिटी जो है, so gift city में they have brought in some policy announcements to include foreign universities and institutions to set up and also international arbitration center to be set up in the gift city जो कि गांधीनगर में है। टैक्स प्रपोजल, शिपिंग कंपनीज को एग्जेम्पशन एक्सटेंड किया गया है, शिपिंग कंपनीज को, नॉन रेसिडेंट स्पेसिफिकली, दैट इज रॉयल्टी और इंटरेस्ट ऑन लीजिंग ऑफ शिप, उनको भी टैक्स बेनिफिट दिया गया है अंडर द IFSC norm. Last but not the least, income from transfer of ship, this is what I said, by a unit in IFSC is exempt. So shipping company को, बाकी सब अमेंडमेंट्स तो पहले से ही है, मतलब what they are trying to do is they are including shipping companies. Last year aircraft was also included, this year they are also including shipping companies. This year they are also including shipping companies. Next is anti-abuse provisions for bonus stripping. अभी as you are aware, bonus stripping जो है 3 महीने का विंडो लिस्टेड सिक्योरिटीज और सिक्योरिटीज को एप्लीकेबल है, बट ये पहले इनविट, रीट और AIF को एप्लीकेबल नहीं था। ये पहले इनविट, रीट और AIF को एप्लीकेबल नहीं था। Now they are bringing these assesses also under that net. They are bringing these assesses also under this net. So if you look at the examples, I have included 4 examples. सबसे पहला एग्जाम्पल देखते हैं। ओरिजिनल सिक्योरिटीज 10 रुपया, कॉस्ट ऑफ परचेज है 100 रुपया, सो 1000 रुपया मेरा कॉस्ट हो गया, 1000 रुपया मेरा कॉस्ट हो गया। कभी लिया था मैंने? 15 जुलाई 2022 को लिया था, 15 जुलाई 2022 को लिया था। और रिकॉर्ड डेट ऑफ बोनस इज 1 सितंबर, रिकॉर्ड डेट इज 1 सितंबर। अभी जुलाई, अगस्त, सितंबर, विद इन 3 मंथ्स है। बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग कभी लगता है 3 महीने में, सो दिस इज विद इन 3 मंथ्स। तो आपको ये बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग का ट्रांजैक्शन एप्लीकेबल या बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग का प्रोविजंस एप्लीकेबल हो जाएगा। और मैंने बेचा कभी 15 अक्टूबर को, कितने में बेचा? 40 में। सेल कंसिडरेशन 400, गेन और लॉस कितना है? 600। तो यहाँ पे ये डिविडेंड स्ट्रिपिंग एप्लीकेबल हो जाएगा, बिकॉज दिस इज विद इन 3 months. दिस इज विद इन 3 months. सिमिलरली सिनारियो 2 और सिनारियो 3 में, आई विल सर्कुलेट दिस पीपीटी लेटर ऑन, यू कैन सी कि इट इज परचेज बिफोर 3 months. यहाँ पे 3 month का क्राइटेरिया सेटिस्फाई नहीं हो रहा है, बिकॉज 3 महीना का पीरियड हो चुका है, इसलिए यहाँ पे बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग एप्लीकेबल नहीं होगा. बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग एप्लीकेबल नहीं होगा. आई रिपीट, दिस इज ओनली फॉर InvIT, REIT and AIF. So therefore for other assessees bonus stripping is already there. So this is only for those category of assessees who are in InvIT, REIT or AIF category. अगर लॉस है तो बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग एप्लीकेबल नहीं होगा. अगर लॉस है तो बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग एप्लीकेबल नहीं होगा. सो दैट इज व्हाट सिनेरियो नंबर 4 इज, कि अगर कोई लॉस नहीं है इफेक्टिवली, बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग की वजह से रेवेन्यू लॉस नहीं है, तो डिविडेंड बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग एप्लीकेबल नहीं होगा. बोनस स्ट्रिपिंग एप्लीकेबल नहीं होगा. दिस इज वेरी स्पेसिफिक, देयरफॉर आई एम नॉट स्पेंडिंग मच टाइम ऑन इट. ओके. Next bit of amendment is basically in relation to trusts, right? So trust में क्या है, there are few amendments, few relevant amendments which I will be discussing here before I close. They are saying application of income जो है, पहले क्या होता था, I used to argue that I am following mercantile system of accounting. I am following mercantile system of accounting. So therefore एक्सपेंसेस अकाउंट डेबिट टू प्रोविजन फॉर एक्सपेंसेस या एक्सपेंसेस अकाउंट डेबिट टू पार्टी अकाउंट, ऐसा मैं एंट्री पास कर देता था और वो एक्सपेंस को क्लेम कर लेता था. वो एक्सपेंस को क्लेम कर लेता था एज एप्लीकेशन ऑफ इनकम, एज एप्लीकेशन ऑफ इनकम. नाउ व्हाट दे आर सेइंग इज दिस विल नॉट बी अलाउड. irrespective of whatever method of accounting you follow, your application will be considered only when you actually pay. तो मैं सिर्फ प्रोविजन का एंट्री करके रखूंगा तो मुझे वो एप्लीकेशन नहीं मिलेगा. नाउ व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय एप्लीकेशन? एज यू आर अवेयर कि ट्रस्ट के केस में 85% ऑफ द इनकम रिसीव्ड इज टू बी अप्लाइड फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ द ट्रस्ट का जो भी स्पेसिफाइड पर्पस है. बट हम लोग क्या करते थे, या काफी लोग क्या करते थे, हम लोग नहीं, काफी ट्रस्ट क्या करते थे, प्रोविजन का एंट्री मार देते थे और एक्सपेंस क्लेम कर लेते थे या एप्लीकेशन क्लेम कर लेते थे. Now this will not be allowed. You will have to actually, you will have to make this application of income. You will have to actually pay this income, right? आपको ये actual payment करना पड़ेगा, otherwise ये आपको application नहीं मिलेगा. Next is voluntary contribution for repairs. Now this is specifically for all टेम्पल, मॉस्क एक्सेट्रा, जहाँ पे रिपेयर के लिए या रिनोवेशन के लिए कोई फंड क्रिएट किया जाता है. सो ट्रस्ट को अभी ऑप्शन दिया गया है कि आपको अगर रिपेयर के लिए कोई पैसा मिला है तो आप उसको कॉर्पस ट्रीट कर सकते हो. कॉर्पस ट्रीट करने का फायदा क्या है कि मुझे वो 85% वाले लिमिट में कंसीडर नहीं करना है, उसको मैं कॉर्पस में लेके जा सकता हूँ, राइट? सो एन ऑप्शन इज गिवन टू द ट्रस्ट सब्जेक्ट टू द कंडीशन. व्हाट आर दोस कंडीशंस? कि सच कॉर्पस इज अप्लाइड ओनली फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ वॉलंटरी कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन मेड. जिसके लिए मिला है उसी के लिए यूज होगा. रिपेयर के लिए है तो रिपेयर के लिए ही यूज होगा. डज नॉट अप्लाई सच कॉर्पस फॉर मेकिंग कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन और डोनेशन टू अदर पर्सन. अभी किसी और ट्रस्ट को मैं नहीं दे सकता हूँ, ये मुझे उसी पर्पस के लिए यूज करना पड़ेगा. नेक्स्ट, सच कॉर्पस इज मेंटेन्ड एज सेपरेटली आइडेंटिफाइबल. ईयरमार्क फंड जिसको बोलते हैं ना, ईयरमार्क फंड, रिपेयर फंड या रिपेयर कॉर्पस फंड. सो इट हैज टू बी आइडेंटिफाइड सेपरेटली. लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, इन्वेस्ट और डिपॉजिट सच कॉर्पस इन द फॉर्म्स ऑफ मोड स्पेसिफाइड इन सेक्शन 11 सबसेक्शन 5. तो ये उसी जगह पे इन्वेस्ट होना चाहिए जो 11 सबसेक्शन 5 में दिया गया है, राइट? Other amendments in terms of trust is allowability of expenses in case of certain violation. अभी पहले क्या होता था, अगर ट्रस्ट में आपने कोई वायोलेशन किया है तो आपको वो डिडक्शन या एक्सपेंडिचर नहीं मिलता था. बट नाउ व्हाट दे आर सेइंग इज दैट इट विल बी अलाउड. पहले जो अलाउ नहीं होता था, इट विल बी अलाउड प्रोवाइडेड इट इज रेवेन्यू इन नेचर, provided it is revenue in nature and subject to the conditions. What are those conditions? Such expenditure is not for the corpus. ये corpus का expenditure नहीं होना चाहिए, revenue होना चाहिए. Such expenditure is not from loan or borrowing. लोन और बोरोइंग से नहीं होना चाहिए, ये वॉलंटरी या ये सब कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन से ही होना चाहिए. Depreciation has not been claimed and is not in respect of asset whose acquisition has been claimed as application of income. ठीक है, मैंने ऑलरेडी अगर कुछ क्लेम कर लिया है, तो मैं उसको यहाँ पे वापस क्लेम नहीं कर सकता. ऑब्वियसली डबल डिडक्शन या डबल अलाउंस नहीं मिल सकता. लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, such expenditure is not in the form of contribution or donation to any person, right? I have to actually spend it and I should not be giving it to any other trust or donation to any other trust. Of course, provisions of 40A IA, 40A 3, 40A 3A shall apply while allowing all these expenses. ये सब provision, so effectively अगर TDS नहीं काटा है तो disallowance हो जाएगा. Cash payment in excess of 10,000 तो again 40A 3 या 40A 3 applicable हो जाएगा. So these provisions will still be applicable, but ये एक थोड़ा relief दिया गया है कि अगर कोई revenue expenditure आपने actually spend किया है, genuinely spend किया है, and even if there are violations like non-maintenance of books of account etc., तो भी आपको वो allow हो जाएगा subject to these 4 conditions which we just discussed. Clear? I think last amendment in terms of trust is basically books of account and other forms and documents as may be prescribed. So earlier, trust did many trusts never maintain books of accounts. वो सिर्फ form 10B वो जो आता था वो भर के return file कर देते थे. But now it is mandatory for all the trusts to maintain books of accounts and such forms as may be prescribed. So this is another important amendment in terms of trusts कि books of account mandatory हो गया है अभी. Last but not the least, penalty equal to 100% or 200% in case of repeated violation. अगर आपने कोई बेनिफिट, अनड्यू बेनिफिट दिया है, किसको? ट्रस्टी को या स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन को, मतलब बेनिफिशियरी के अलावा ट्रस्टी को या एनी अदर रिलेटिव ऑफ ट्रस्टी दैट इज स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन हु हैज वायोलेटेड द प्रोविजन ऑफ 1023C 21st प्रोविजो और सेक्शन 13(1)(c). सो अगर आपने कोई अनड्यू बेनिफिट या अनड्यू एडवांटेज दिया है तो वो जो भी अमाउंट आपने पे किया है वो 100% आपको पेनल्टी लग जाएगा. अगर आपको पहले पेनल्टी लग चुका है और ये रिपीटेटिव है तो 200% ऑफ द अमाउंट, मतलब आपने समझो ट्रस्टी को 1 लाख रुपया दिया अनड्यू बेनिफिट, ठीक है, तो पहली बार है तो पूरा 1 लाख रुपया आपको पेनल्टी लग जाएगा. दूसरी बार है तो 2 लाख रुपया. अगर आपने 1 लाख का डिफॉल्ट किया है तो डबल द अमाउंट, 2 लाख रुपया आपको पेनल्टी लग जाएगा. वेरी ड्रैकोनियन एंड हार्श प्रोविजंस सो टू डिस्करेज any benefit being passed on to the trustees or the relatives of the trustees. I think with this the key takeaways, we move to the last slide, that is key takeaways from this budget. As I said, this is more about the Invest in India budget, where we are talking about Gati Shakti Yojana, we are talking about investments, we are talking about agriculture, the drones being introduced, that is Kisan drones being introduced for farmers, then PPP model being introduced for various infrastructure projects. So this is all about venture capital, private equity, capex, disinvestment. We know that LIC and BPCL etc. are in the list of disinvestment in this year. Startup exits, that is IBC. Real estate flows, 48,000 crores being committed for the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Last but not the least, goodwill reduction. अभी लास्ट ईयर हमने अमेंडमेंट देखा था कि गुडविल जो है उस पे आपको डेप्रिसिएशन नहीं मिलेगा. सो इफेक्टिवली यू विल हैव टू रिड्यूस दिस गुडविल फ्रॉम योर ब्लॉक ऑफ एसेट so as to claim depreciation only on the other block of assets or other assets in the block. So therefore they are saying कि goodwill आपको minus करना पड़ेगा and that will amount to transfer with effect, with retrospective effect from 1st of April 2021. की मिसेस में अगर हम दिखेंगे तो डायरेक्ट ओवरसीज लिस्टिंग अलाउ नहीं किया है अभी तक, विच वाज एक्सपेक्टेड बाय द प्राइवेट इक्विटी और द वेंचर कैपिटल फंड्स. क्रॉस बॉर्डर मर्जर्स अभी तक अलाउ नहीं किया है. टैक्स पैरिटी ऑन एग्जिट्स अगेन फॉर वेरियस एग्जिट्स इन IBC एंड ऑल. So this is all the misses and hopefully this will be covered in the subsequent budgets or upcoming budgets. So I think with this I have concluded in the given allotted time frame. We still have 10 odd minutes for any questions or any views of the participants. let me give a disclaimer here that it has only been 1.5 days. So this is my limited knowledge and limited analysis of the budget with whatever inputs I could get from the reading and analysis. So I am not saying I may be 100% right. These are all my initial thoughts, initial, I would say, reading of the budget. Some people might have different views, or there might be different views which may come up in the days to come. So over to Deepak ji and organizers for any questions.
Thank you, Vyomesh bhai. It was a detailed analysis, not a brief analysis, sir. I mean, and within a short period of 1.5 days, you have done a fantastic job. So first of all, kudos to your efforts and dedication. I mean, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, now there are some questions. Now, first question is from Aditya Maheshwari, and his question is, Aditya, you can directly ask, sir. Aditya.
Yeah, 194 IA.
Yeah.
1% TDS on property.
Correct.
Now they have added that
on stamp duty value or sale consideration, whichever is higher.
Yes, but if the project is under construction and we have booked it,
yeah,
you will get to know the stamp duty value after 4 years,
correct.
3-4 years, later date, or
right.
Even there's a variation of 10% allowed under 50C. So the sale consideration will not be matching with the what you offer for tax.
Yes, definitely.
On which TDS has been deducted. So that's a mismatch. Again, the CPC would send a notice saying that you are not offered full sale consideration.
Yes, there is an
and disallow the TDS.
I agree. There is an ambiguity. Yes, I agree.
Because nowadays CPC is sending notice for anything and everything.
Yeah. So we'll need some guidance around this or some clarification around this. Maybe we can include this in the post-budget, I would say, recommendations. Yeah.
So sir, now the next question is from Jogendra Sethi. His question is, amendment to section 137(1) is applicable from which financial year?
37(1).
Yes, 37(1).
Yeah. So 37(1) is basically prospective. It is not retrospective, technically speaking. So you still have that leeway to say that for the past years it should not be applicable. It will be applicable only from 20 to 23 onwards. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So any members having any question, we will unmute you so that you can directly ask the question to Vyomesh bhai. Any questions? Kindly raise your hands, or you can post the same in the chat box.
During your presentation, you have mentioned something about 148. So, notices issued within April to June, nothing has come in the budget, whether
Yes.
they are valid or invalid. Nothing.
Yes, they are invalid.
And only those who have gone to High Court would be same be applicable, or
no, not necessarily. In fact, the law remains the same irrespective of whether you have gone to the High Court or no. Those who are going to High Court, they get this direct relief from the High Court. Others can go to the normal, I would say, appellate channel, and then rely on these High Court judgments.
Jogendra Sethi ji has raised his hands. I am unmuting you. Jogendra ji, go ahead and ask the question to Vyomesh bhai.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Mr. Pathak. Actually, you mentioned that this 37(1) amendment will be applicable prospectively, but they have mentioned actually from 1st April 22.
Yeah, 22.
In case of basically, generally the amendment when they mention actually the date, so it is for the start of that assessment year.
Yeah.
So in that case, should it be for the assessment year 22-23?
Assessment year 22-23.
But if it is assessment year 22-23, then actually financial year is 21-22.
Yeah, in a way, yes, it is financial year 21-22. Yes, it is financial year 21-22.
So in that case, it is retrospective actually.
In that limited sense, it is retrospective for 1 year. But the point is, department cannot go beyond this. इसके पीछे नहीं जा सकते.
Okay. If I can ask one more question, actually, in this case. So, really, this business gifts. So, where the pharma companies are providing samples to doctors.
Yeah.
So, will it amount to basically these be considered as a gift in that case?
Yeah. So see here, what I can argue or I can say is that this is my business promotion expenses. What I am giving, see the main idea, if you see the circular, even the IMA circular, etc., it tries to target the foreign trips, the hotel stay, etc. In this case, in your example, what I'm giving is free samples, right? This is purely my marketing expenses where I am giving free samples of my own goods so that the doctors can give it to the patients and also recommend it going forward. So I, even after this amendment, I will still argue that this is purely my business development activity and purely my sales promotion activity. So therefore 37 should not be applicable to me.
37 that I think you are referring, actually it is in the case of that disallowance of that IMC guidelines actually.
Yes.
So my question is with reference to the business gifts.
Yes.
So because now they have asked to basically deduct 10% this withholding tax in case of basically if I am giving, or if I'm giving gift to anybody in the business gifts.
So if it exceeds 20,000, yes, TDS will be applicable there.
So will this samples which a pharma company gives will be counted as actually be termed as a business gift in that case?
No, it should not be. It is not a perquisite per se, because doctor himself may not be gaining out of that, right? He may not be selling that. So it is purely for me. It is as I said, I will continue the same position that it is my business development expenditure and it is not a perquisite per se for the doctor or the medical practitioner. While the department can argue कि yes, ये आपने उसको perquisite free में दे दिया है, डॉक्टर उसको बेचेगा तो उसको फायदा हो सकता है. So therefore whatever is the MRP of that or whatever the doctor earns out of that, that should be considered as perquisite, but arguably this should not be a perquisite.
Because if basically department take that stand actually, then basically I have a problem from both. As
Yes.
I have not deducted that withholding
Correct.
tax of 10%, and also then in that case basically because then I'm defaulting on the section 37 also in that case. So both ways actually the company get in a litigation.
Correct. Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perquisites on professional fees. Now it's like a barter transaction would also get taxed. You used to get a flat for the professional fees, the TDS would not be applicable. So now it
Yes.
indirectly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess all the questions are answered and there are no more questions now. And so with this means, so now before proceeding further, I have an important announcement to make. The next study circle meeting will be held on this Sunday, and that is on 6th of February, and that is on Sunday morning 10:30 to 12:30, and the topic will be the impact of budget on the capital markets, and this topic will be taken by the market veteran Vikas Sethi ji. So I request members to register in large numbers and take the benefit of learning. And now I request Aditya Maheshwari to kindly propose a hearty vote of thanks to Vyomesh bhai.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to give hearty vote of thanks and well-deserved vote of thanks to Vyomesh Pathak. First of all, I'd like to thank him for taking time out, and within 1.5 days, he has given us so much detailed presentation and what are the macro things and what should have been done, what could have been also be done, and he touched upon, and within a period of 1.5 days, which shows his dedication towards the topic. And we thought there were not many, as per budget speech, there were not many changes, but after listening to him, we do understand that there are some nitty-gritties which needed to be looked upon also, and which he has very well covered. So, and also I thank all the participants to come on the working day because generally we keep on a Saturday or a Sunday, but since the earliest one, who moves first, that was the theme, I think, by the coordinators and conveners today. So I thank the conveners also to keeping the event so far at an early stage, at a very fast time. So I, on behalf of Andheri Oshiwara Study Circle, propose a very hearty vote of thanks to Vyomesh Pathak, and we look forward to meet you in person also.
Sure,
You have been a regular speaker at our
yes.
event, so we
Thank
look
you.
forward to
one more
meeting you.
thing, and one more thing, Vyomesh bhai has taught us कि भाई कि ऐसा है कि budget is more than मतलब increase or decrease in slab rates. तो उसके ऊपर हमें जाना पड़ेगा,
Correct.
and we have to think on a macro level कि हमें ये देखना पड़ेगा कि ये जो बजट है इससे क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज आ सकती है, मैक्रो लेवल पे क्या आ सकती है, क्या हमें एज अ प्रोफेशनल सोचना चाहिए. So I find that those are the most important key takeaways actually from the today's this. So I thank you to all the members once again, to Vyomesh bhai and all the members for coming today, and we'll meet on Sunday 6th. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vyomesh.
Thank you. We are ending.
One more thing, Vyomesh bhai, there is a request from members that if it is possible that you can share your presentation, so kindly, if it is possible from your end.
I'll do that in a day or two. I'll do
Okay.